Hey there, it's Lenny McGill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop right here in the Nashville studios today, and we're going to talk about the new Glock Performance Trigger because it's a hot item. We've been selling a ton of them, and literally thousands of them that I've sold personally. So I know Glock has sold a bunch more, but it's a hot item, and it's available now. And it says right here, it says it's available for the Glock Gen 5, 17, 19, 19X. 34 and 45 and 47. Okay, so that's the calibers it says it's available for. So, we were thinking and said, gosh, we think, that we can make that available for Gen 3 as well and Gen 4 guns. And so we have developed it for Gen 3 and Gen 4 guns. And we've enhanced the trigger with what we call our enhanced performance trigger with our gold bar and the aluminum shoe available in some different color combinations and the 3.5 pound connector. I'm going to show you how much we have enhanced it here. But then the other thing that we were thinking the other day is, Glock makes a 40 caliber Gen 5. Why wouldn't it fit and work in the 40 caliber? So we start scratching our heads and thinking, okay, well, there's one difference, and I'm going to show you that difference here in a minute. It's really about the ejector. Okay, not the extractor, but the ejector. Now, this is a Gen 5 Glock 22. It is empty. I'm pulling the trigger in a safe direction. I know that it's empty. There's no ammunition in the room. No magazines are loaded, nothing close. I can't load it by mistake. And I think you should always do the same when you are working on firearms, especially if you're in your house. Make sure that there's no ammunition around because it's too easy to load and make a mistake. Now, that said, I'm going to go ahead and, before I even take this gun apart, it's a factory gun. Relatively new, hasn't really been sold yet. It's just one of our inventory guns. I pulled it out just today. And I want to test the trigger. Typically, the Gen 5 guns are between 5.5 pounds. And that's just out of the box. So here's my dead weight trigger weight. We sell a ton of these. This is a very cool item. The bottom is 1 pound. These are, 2 pounds. These are 1 pound ingots or increments here. So there's 4 pounds. Here's another 1 pound. There's 5. Okay, there's a 5 pound weight. It's a dead weight, so there's not like a spring that I'm gonna be able to game. The main thing is try to be consistent. So again, I'm gonna double check the gun, make sure it's empty. Rack it. I'm gonna go ahead now and use this dead weight and see if I can make it break at 5. And here it goes. No. Give it a little wiggle. Right there. That little wiggle got it. Okay, so let me try 5.5. And see if it breaks at 5.5 instantly. Yes, okay. So again, it's between 5.5. Just for grins, here's 5.25. I got a little 1/4 pound weight. I'm curious to see if it's going to do it right at 5.25. Because like I said, it's between 5.5. And here we go. Let's see if I can make sure it's on the same spot here. Here we go. All right, there's 5.25. Yep, it's just there, just kind of rolled down towards the tip. And so it's between 5, 5.5, 5.25, right in that ballpark, is what the stock trigger weight is. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump in here and we're going to do a couple things. We're going to install the enhanced performance trigger. And I'm going to show you how to change it from a 9mm ejector. And again, now this is really important that you understand the concept of what the ejector is. It's this little piece right here. And how you can change this to a 40 caliber and work this in your 40 caliber guns. All right, so let's go ahead through the disassembly procedure, and I'll show you the difference between the two ejectors, between a 9mm and a 40 caliber, and why you should change them, why it's important to change them, and how we can take this Gen 5 Glock 22 from 5.5 to 3.5, 4 pound trigger weight, which will provide you with better accuracy, better speeds, and overall, just a better performance. So now, to disassemble the gun, of course, it is empty. I have pulled the trigger. I'm going to take my hand up here on top, and I'm just going to pull back the slide just a little bit just to take the pressure off of the slide lock. It's also known as the takedown lever. And I'm going to pull down on both sides with my fingers. This does not have the extended slide lock that we sell, so it's a little hard. I got to really use my fingernails. I'll hold it down. I think I missed it on that side. There it is. And as I hold it down, I did miss it. try it again. Hold it down. You walk it off, and I want to be careful to hold on to it so it doesn't fall off the slide or off the frame. And there it comes. And there's the upper. That's the slide or upper. This is an MOS gun. You can see the MOS plate. I don't need to work with this right now. What I need to do is take the trigger mechanism out of this gun, out of the frame. To do that, I'm going to use my punch set, which everybody should have some kind of punch set. This is the one I've been selling and been using for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. They have a new box for it. We sell a ton of them because it's very helpful, and you'll see how. So I'm going to take my the larger punch. I'm going to use it on the larger trigger pin. So you've got two pins here, trigger pin, trigger housing pin. And that's what they did on the Gen 5 guns. They got rid of the locking block pin. I don't know why, but they did. So not like they're saving any money, but there's some reason they did. I guess because they could. And so now, here's the punch. The trick to this, now this gun I already did one time, okay, so it's a little easier, but the trick to this is to always understand that it intersects, that the pin intersects with the slide stop. So if it's hard to push out, you want to jiggle that slide stop a little bit back and forth, up and down, to try to take the pressure off it. So like I said, this should be pretty easy because I've already done it a couple times. And there it comes right out. So I just put a little pressure right there just to, you know, unlock it from the pin. And you'll see what's on the pin is there's two little grooves here. Boom, boom. And those grooves lock onto that slide stop. And so when they get locked in there, the spring on the slide stop pushes it up into those pins. That's why as I jiggle that thing, I can kind of wiggle it off of those grooves. And then I can push the punch out without having to pound on it. Now, sometimes you'll pound on it with a hammer. And like I said, the first or second time it's always really tight. But once you do it the second time or third time, it gets a lot easier. Now, I'm going to take a smaller punch, which is a 3/32 inch punch, and I'm going to go ahead and punch out this trigger housing pin. This is a plastic pin that is pretty easy to get to. You can just kind of get on top of it, make sure you're centered up on it, if I can see, and just push it out with your hand. Sometimes, well, like I said, when they're new, you just can tap it out. But, again, I've done this once or twice before, and it comes out. So you got two pins, trigger housing pin and the trigger pin itself. That's in your Gen 5 Glock. Trigger housing pin is plastic, and of course the trigger pin itself is steel. Okay, so the pins are out. Now, here's the easy part. You're going to go ahead and grab hold of the ejector, okay? And what I want to show you real quick while you're looking, let me pull it out and I'll show you. Okay, first, I'm sorry, got to take the locking block out too. Boom, out comes the locking block. Got ahead of myself there. Locking block comes out, boom. Here comes the slide stop, might as well pull that out too, boom. And here comes the trigger, grab hold of the ejector, boom. And now, this is what I wanted to show you, is why I'm getting excited about this. Because now, here's the difference on the 40 caliber versus the 9mm. It's real important you understand the concept here, because it's important if you're going to shoot this performance trigger in your gun and you're shooting 40 caliber, you need to change the ejector. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? You need to change the ejector. So I'm assuming you have a 40 caliber and that you're going to go ahead and install the performance trigger in your 40 caliber. To do so, you need to switch out the ejector. And here's how you do it. So I'm going to take the 40 caliber ejector. Now, if you notice one thing, okay, let me give you a little bit more detail on here. The 40 caliber ejector is straight. The 9mm has a curve or a bend to it. Now, if you think about that in your mind's eye, and you say to yourself, okay, well, the 40 caliber round is bigger than the 9mm, okay, it's a bigger diameter, the casing. So, understanding that the slides are basically the same size, but now for the ejector to intersect with the case on the 9mm, because it's smaller, it's got to bend over a little bit to be able to reach it. Now the 40 caliber is bigger, so it doesn't have to bend, it's straight. The problem with that is if you try to use the 40 caliber, the 9mm ejector with 40 caliber rounds, it could potentially reach over enough to intersect with the primer. And you could have a problem there because if that hits the primer and it's coming back fast, it could go bang. Now, that said, that's why you want to change this out if you are using the performance trigger with a 9mm ejector. You want to take that ejector out and you want to put the 40 caliber ejector in. Okay, I can not say that enough. But again, here's the difference. 9mm is bent, 40 caliber is straight. Everything else is the same. You can look and see this trigger housing is the same. Okay, so the sizing will work. And we did the same thing with the Gen 3 option that we built, the Gen 4 option. This is a Gen 5. So here's how this works now. Take a pair of pliers. You're going to go in there and you're actually going to grab hold of that ejector. A lot of people don't know that this is really not an overmolded part. It's just slipped in. Overmolded means it would be molded around it and it would actually capture it. It seems like it's just slipped in after the fact. And so now I'm going to grab hold of it with a pair of pliers. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull it out. Here it comes, slowly but surely. Make sure I get it right. Oh man, here it comes. All right, here it comes. It's coming out now. And a lot of people don't know that this part, the ejector, looks like that. Let me get it out of my hand so you can actually see it. That's the ejector for the 40 caliber that came out of the stock gun. So now I'm going to just put this trigger away. And I'm going to take the ejector from the performance trigger, the 9mm, out of the trigger housing. Same concept. Going to grab hold of it with a pair of pliers and just kind of pull it out. There it comes. That came out a little easier too. So, all right, now here's your two ejectors. Again, we can look at them side by side. You're going to see the 9mm is curved, the 40 caliber is straight. They have different numbers on them as well. Okay, they're the numbers that Glock has assigned them. So now, I'm going to take the 40 caliber ejector and I'm going to place it into the performance trigger right in that slot, just where it came out of. Let me get my hands out of the way there. Come on now. There we go. And once I get it started, then I'll just push it in more and more and more. Now, it gets a little tough back there, a little tight back there, so I'm going to use, actually I can just use a table probably. If I do that like this, just push it straight in. I don't know if you can see that, but all the way down, make sure it's fully seated. Now I'm going to look in there, make sure that it is fully seated, and it is. Okay. And there is your now 40 caliber ejector in the performance trigger, which will allow you to shoot the 40 caliber with the advantage of the performance trigger. All right, so we're going to drop the trigger in. I'm going to reassemble this. Boom. There's the triggers all the way down. Everything's all set. The hole matches up. I'm looking good, right? Okay, now in goes the slide stop right over top. Make sure that gets seated down. Make sure the holes kind of line up. They do. They look good. Here comes my locking block. Okay, that looks good. Now, I like to put the trigger housing pin in first because that kind of locks the trigger housing in place so there's no movement up there in the front. Here's where your hammer comes in play with a nylon tip. Just kind of tap that in. And it's nice to have the nylon tip because you can kind of get in there and beat on it and know you're not going to damage the frame at all or scar it up or dent it or do anything there. Looks good, okay. Now, here comes the trigger pin. Sometimes the trigger pin, gets hung up on the trigger itself. So you want to look inside there, and sometimes you need to push the trigger down a little bit just to make it so the holes line up. And I can see that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm going to put my punch in there and make sure it's all set and keep the trigger right basically there. And then I'm going to take my pin, and if all's good, you can get most of it started by hand, just like that. And then you take your punch, just tap it in. Now, the last thing I like to do is just try to true that up on either side. And sometimes when you do that, you'll hear the actual slide stop click into those two grooves that we talked about earlier. And I heard that click. I don't know if you did or not, but now I know that that slide stop is exactly where it wants to be. It has good spring pressure to it. Everything looks good. Trigger looks good. Now, again, on the performance trigger, it's always in the out position. It's got a spring and it always returns it. So it's a little bit different than the standard triggers. And that's one of the, kind of, I'd say, not goofy things, but interesting things. All right, remember now, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to drop a little piece of oil, a little drop of oil right on the ear of the connector. You can do that before you put it in or not. It will migrate itself down to the metal-to-metal contact of the trigger bar and the connector. So that's that. Now, understanding that our trigger bar on this enhanced performance trigger is coated in titanium nitride, which is a lower coefficient of friction than the standard Glock trigger bar, just because it's coated. I mean, that's what they tell me at least, but I believe it because you'll see the difference here in just a second. That oil is going to go ahead and migrate itself down and just, lube up that. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to drop a piece of oil on the rails, both front and rear. Not a lot. And the nice thing about this is not only the applicator, which gives you that ability to do one little drop wherever you want it, but also the fact that it is purple and you can see it. And because you can see it, it's identifiable. And because it's identifiable, it's, you've got oil where you want it. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop the barrel in, and here comes the guide rod. This is all factory guide rod too, so okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the slide on. Now I could put a little oil on the rails. Not a bad idea. So again, just a little drop, boom, and boom. Not a lot. Just enough to, it's going to migrate itself around and find it. The gun, like I said, is brand new. It's never really been shot. And there it is. And there we have it. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
So, what did we do? Most important thing we did is we changed the the ejector from 9mm to 40 caliber because I have a 40 caliber gun. We dropped in the enhanced performance trigger versus the factory trigger. Remember the factory trigger was between 5.5. Boom. Here is my dead weight trigger weight. There's the 5.25. I'm going to take the quarter off, and I'll just go with 5 real quick, just to show you what we've got going on here. Let's see here. Okay, not even close, right? Okay, here's 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's see what happens here. Oops, look at that. I told you, this is an amazing trigger system that we have enhanced and made it even better. And here's 3.5. Oh, okay. Well, that was pretty quick. So if it goes to 3, I'll be surprised. I thought it was between 3.5 to right there. So here's 3. All right. I didn't think it was going to do 3, even with a little wiggle. But 3.25 could be on the ticket there. Let's see here. Yep. So it's basically 3.25. So we went from 5 to 5.5, 5.25 to 3.25 to 3.5. So it's about 2-pound difference. And, a lot of people will say, well, what are the advantages of a lighter trigger pull? The advantage of a lighter trigger pull is that you are exerting less pressure to actually manipulate the trigger. Because of that, you're not using the muscles as much, and because of that, you're not moving the gun as much. Because the gun's always in motion. I mean, it's never really still when you're holding it out there, no matter what you think. It's not, no one's got that rock there. Even if you had a rest, there's still a little bit of motion based upon your body and your breathing and all that stuff. So, as you manipulate the trigger, you will have a tendency to move the sights, disturb the sight picture. How's that? with a lighter trigger pull, you're less likely to disturb the sight picture than with a heavier trigger pull, especially on multiple shots, shot to shot. So that's the advantage of a lighter, crisper trigger pull. And of course, what we have done to enhance this trigger is we've improved the trigger shoe by making it out of aluminum versus plastic. Looks a lot better, and you have a lot of chances to customize it with color and all that other stuff. So that is how you will take the enhanced performance trigger and shoot it in your .40 caliber gun. And we've tested it, we've tried it, it works great. Just remember, you got to change the ejector. Absolute, without a doubt, you must do that. I'm Lenny McGill. This, of course, is the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop here in Nashville. We got a beautiful Nashville showroom. I want you to come down and visit. If you're in Nashville, make sure you do make a trip. The videos here are going to be on Rumble as well, besides just YouTube. And we'd love you to subscribe and to like and do all that other good stuff. Say good things about me because that helps us get more and more play with YouTube, and more people get to see all this fun stuff because we show you all the best and latest, greatest stuff for your Glock to get the most out of it, to make you a better shooter, to make you a safer shooter too. The goal here is safety. Always keep that gun pointing in a safe direction. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, and understand if the gun is loaded or not. You always think it's loaded. It's always loaded, but understand, okay, there's no ammo in here. I can't even accidentally unload it. But if I were to put this gun down and I pick it back up 2 minutes later, I'm going to look inside of it. And I suggest you always do the same. Thanks for watching. I'm Lenny McGill. We'll see you next time.